Though I will say that Instagram post I just got done watching has some truth. Why can girls ogle over? Why can girlfriends ogle over some murderer in a TV show? Be like, oh my god, he's so hot. But the second I look at some freaking character from a TV show and I'm like, oh, she's kind of cute, they summon malevolent shrine on me. Hello everyone, my name is Stonsey Boy and welcome back to Reading with Stonsey. Today we are reading pages 121 to 147 of Five Nights at Freddy's Somniphobia. Do you want to sit on my lap? You kind of can't. I'm doing an audiobook right now, bud. What? What? What's up? Here, I'll bring the bed closer to me. Here, you can lay down while I read. Sorry, I guess I'm being joined by my chihuahua named Rocky. But yeah, 121 to 147, which I put down in my notes 16 pages. Even your good pal Stonesy messes up on math. That's 26, not 16. I thought this would be an easy episode. I was wrong, and that's okay. Even the people who know all get wrong sometimes. But yeah. Alright, so without further ado, and just to get it started and get it over with, let's begin. You must not be much of a man, Asher said, not bothering to whisper. Shush, Maddie scolded. Be nice, and besides, Luca could be out there. You mean Springtrap, Asher corrected. Could you two hush and move over? Nolan asked. I need room to maneuver here. Why don't we try another vent cover? Maddie asked. Well, you've tried two already, Nolan said. I'm tired of crawling around in here. Maddie let out a squeak. Sorry, babe, Nolan said. More rustling, a small gasp. Okay, there, Nolan said. Luca settled into the wall next to the vent cover. He put his back to the wall and waited. He heard Nolan grunt, and then a vent cover flew off the wall. It arched a few feet from the room and clattered to the floor. Nolan's feet poked out through the vent opening. My hero, Maddie whispered. Why are you whispering? Asher said. If Springtrap is out there, it's not like he didn't hear that. Nolan slid out into the room. Luca considered grabbing Nolan as soon as he was out, but no one was the least likely to pay attention to anything Luca said. Asher and Maddie would be more responsible. Nolan was also the strongest of the three. He wouldn't hesitate to grapple with Luca and shove Luca around. Manhandling his friends was no one's idea of being funny. Not only was Luca weakened by pain, he was afraid that fighting Nolan would set off more of the suit's locking system. Luca held his breath. If he remained still and tucked into the wall shadow, no one might not notice him until the others were out of the duct. Nolan bent over the stuck hand inside of the duct. He made an exasperated sound and yanked his hand back. Not you, idiot. First, ladies first. Sorry, Asher said. More rustling came from the inside of the vent. Nolan extended his hand again. Oops, Maddie said. Don't look, Asher. This dress is really short. Eyes are closed, Asher said. They better be, Nolan said. Luca gritted his teeth. Nolan pulled Maddie out of the vent. He immediately wrapped her arms around her and gave him a long kiss. A little help here? Asher said. He went from inside of the vent. Nolan and Maddie ignored him. Asher grumbled and began wiggling out of the vent, opening the aid. Luca hated watching Nolan kiss Maddie, but this kiss served Luca. Nolan's eyes were closed, and Maddie's back was to Luca, and they were only a couple feet away. Luca reached down and grabbed Maddie's arm. Maddie immediately broke off the kiss. She screamed and tried to wrest herself from Luca's grasp. Luca held on, but she started to lean toward her, willing her to listen to what she needed to tell her. But as he did, something inside the rabbit head clicked. Suddenly, metal gripped Luca's skull, and his face piercing through the scalp of the skin around his eyes. His nose and his mouth, his entire head were encased in what felt like a serrated vase. It felt like hooked prongs that now fastened the rabbit head to Luca. The pain was scorching, as now a dozen fiery red pokers were trying to burrow their way into his face and cranium. He screamed. Even though Maddie was still screeching, they managed to yank her arm free as Luca buckled into his new agony. Nolan pulled away from Luca. Asher, now off the vent into his feet, grabbed Maddie's other hand. The three turned to run from Luca. Wait, Luca tried to call out, but the word didn't come out right. It couldn't. Two of the searing metal clasps had secured themselves into Luca's face, curled it to his mouth. The third one jabbed through his lips. He could barely move his lips and tongue. Wait came out was ah, and unintelligible as he managed to make the end of the gurgle because the blood was filling his mouth. Luca coughed and swallowed the blood. He gagged and tried to speak again. All he could do was make another gargle noise and the sound of a ghostly moan. Nolan, Maddie, and Asher were well away from Luca now, thundering around the end of the table and heading for the door of the party room. Although they were running, all three were laughing. Maddie's laugh was light and airy. Nolan's was deep and throaty. Asher chuckling, and he turned to look at Luca, was following Maddie and Nolan in front of the room. Way to get into character, Asher called the three. striked into the dining room, nearly tripping over another in the delight. "Stop!" Luca tried to call out. All that came out was a throaty "ah!" Luca's friends laughed heartily. They could hear their footsteps slap across the dining room floor. He worked through the party room, knocking into chairs and plowing through streamers, which seemed to chitter in amusement as he passed. Everyone and everything was laughing. Everyone but Luca. Luca stumbled out of the party room just as his friends reached the other side of the dining room. They fell against one another in their hilarity as they watched him. Lucas started running toward him, but the molten jibs around the head appeared to be affecting his coordination. He tripped over a chair, he reeled into a table, plates, and fake pizza went skidding off the tablecloth onto the floor. At the same time, a rapid succession of snapping sounds filled the suit. Lucas' arms and legs were speared in dozens of sharp projections that drilled through his skin with such depth that he felt like they were going all the way through him. He howled. Lucas' howl stopped his friends in their tracks. They turned to look back at him. All three of them were open mouthed. As a wide receiver who regularly got tackled, Luca was familiar with pain. But not pain like this. It felt like every nerve ending of his body was firing agony message to his brain. Luca had not been exposed to a lot of depraved ways of harming the human body, but in the movies he's seen, what he watched called me all sorts of torture. It never bothered him. It wasn't real. But this was. Luca had no trouble believing that this was what his feeling was really flayed alive in a medieval torture chamber. Or maybe it was even worse. Luca took a teetering step toward his friends. He reached toward them and tried to speak again. "Help me!" The words came out as "E-L-E," and behind the words were more gargling sounds, burbled from the back of his throat. He tried to clear it and made a phlegmy, choking sound. Maddie said loudly, "That's gross." She grabbed Nolan's hand and pulled him toward the swinging door in the back of the dining room. Asher followed the couple. When in an open doorway, he paused and looked toward Luca. He grinned. "Asher," he called out. Asher's name turned to Arr, and even that butchered version of Asher's name disappeared into the moan. The pain with Luca's head was becoming even more excruciating. Asher waved at Luca and appeared through the swinging door. Luca pushed himself off the table and he stumbled into. He shoved it outside of the chair with his foot. Looking at the chair, all Luca wanted to do was sink into it. Actually, he wanted to fall into the floor and just wail. No, he really wanted to get out of there. And to do that, he had to reach his friends. He had to try to get them to understand what was happening to him. Luca took a step, groaning in the effort. Then he paused. Maybe he should just stay where he was. Eventually, his friends would have come back there through the exit of the game. Maybe they'd find him and haul him out. With them, thinking he was still playing his role. There was just one little problem with that idea. The spike-like pieces of metal that embraced Luca's head like a foul, burr-filled helmet left multiple stab wounds. Luca could feel the bore holes through his scalp and the skin on his face. He could feel one at the top of each ear. And now, since the suit's last assault, Luca's entire body was being turned into a sieve. Down both arms and both legs, that felt like relentless screwdrivers were drilling through his skin, fascia, and muscles. He was being skewered. Every wound in Luca's body bled. He could feel that too. Thick, warm blood ran along the sides of his face and trickled down the neck. Blood flowed obviously in his arms and legs. How much blood had he already lost? How much was he losing now? He felt lightheaded and woozy. Luca wasn't sure how much longer the game was going to last, if he passed out before it was over. No, he shouldn't wait where he was. He had to go find his friends. Gathering his strength, Luca managed to get through the dining room. He made it to the swinging door, then he reached the door. He fell through it. Then it opened. He wasn't trying to be quiet about it anyway. Stuff was no longer his repertoire. The swinging doors led to a huge restaurant kitchen. Stainless steel counters that covered stacks of pizza boxes. A row of pizza ovens, dark and cold, stood open and empty. Luca floundered out of the room and jolted around the end of the corner, hoping to find his friends crouching behind him, but no one was there. Scanning the kitchen, Luca realized his vision was even more obscure than it had been when he first put on the suit. Blood had pooled in his eyes. He felt like he was looking through a grisly red veil. He couldn't rub his eyes to clear them because of the absurd mangy rabbit paws couldn't reach through the milky orbs of the costume head. Luca blinked several times as he tried to clear his eyes. On the third blink, he spotted another swinging door. He wobbled in that direction. Once again falling through the door, Luca found himself at the back of the hallway. They're looking toward the dining room. He saw his friends on the other side of the doorway, separating the hall and the dining area. They stopped, and Asher was messing with something on the wall. Luca opened his mouth to call out, but before he made the sound, the speaker's hiss and static again. Then a spooky voice came to the speaker. "There just isn't room in here for both of us." Maddie's giggle drowned out the sound of more static before the speakers once again went silent. "That's way too freaky," she said. Asher laughed. "Where do you think he is?" Maddie asked. Asher stepped away from the wall. He looked down the hallway, and he saw Luca. Luca ran as fast as he could. Only about 20 feet separated him from Asher. Crossing the distance quickly, he would have been a problem. Luca had known for his speed and agility on the football field. On the football field, however, Luca wasn't hammered by a rabbit tooth trying to kill him. Now he wasn't able to get up to speed as he needed. Instead, he pitched and rolled down the hall as if he was trying to cross the deck of a ship, heaving as a tropical storm. As Luca moved, he reached out an arm, and he called out, "Ash!" Only a nightmarish soft ass sound came out of his mouth. Even so, Asher didn't turn and run. Instead, he gazed at Luca with wide eyes and a happy smile. "Incredible, dude, you're nailing it." "Come on, you moron," Nolan yelled at Asher. We're supposed to be getting away from him, not admiring his moves. Asher laughed. Sorry, it's just that he's doing such a great job. Luca fell toward Asher, attempting to leap to his friend. If he had to tackle a clueless guy to get his attention, Luca was okay with that. At this point, Luca wasn't concerned about his movement triggering the suit. The suit was already triggered. The damage was done. Luca's only hope was to get help before the damage was irreparable. Asher scurried out of Luca's reach at the last minute. Luca fell into the door jamb. He tried to grab it as upright, and his friends raced up to the stage. He's kicking some serious stalker butt, don't you think? Asher said as they ran. Maddie, absolutely. He's like an ultimate monster. Shut up, you two, Nolan snapped. Come on. Maddie huffed. Don't tell me to shut up. Sorry, Nolan said. Asher laughed. Dude, you're in trouble. The sound of his words moved away, and Luca and Asher ran. Shut up, Asher, Nolan said. His voice came from Luca even from an even greater distance. Luca's friends were moving farther away, but he could still hear them. Hey, Asher said. You told me to shut up. Told me to shut up, Maddie. Oh, he's allowed to do that, Maddie said. She laughed. Asher was about to retort Maddie's words, but Luca couldn't hear them. His friends had gone beyond his hearing range. The conversation was now just a disjointed rumble. Lucas sagged back against the wall. His friends just thought he was in character. So much was worse things for him. The better they thought he was playing the role. How was he going to convince them that he wasn't playing anything at all? How could he let them know he was deadly serious? This whole thing was supposed to have been a lark. How had it gone so wrong? Luca pushed off the wall. He knew exactly how it had gone wrong. Luca paused, eyeing the console that Asher had tinkered with. It looked like a control panel, operated lights and audio. Luca gazed at the panel longingly. If he would have used it to communicate with his friends, what would it do? He couldn't speak. The best he could do was gurgle over the loudspeaker. They think it was all part of the act. Besides, the rapid pause wouldn't manage to control it. Luca painstakingly made his way to the short flight of steps to the stage. He stopped and listened. Maddie's voice, high and spirited, filtered through the curtains at the back of the stage. Luca clumped by an animatronic sculptures and pushed his way through the folds of the heavy fabric around him. Past the curtains, Luca found himself in the backstage, an area stacked with boxes surrounded by hanging rocks, holding several Freddy character costumes. The costumes were similar to the ones in the costume closet, but these were fuzzy with dust and smelled of mildew. Luca brushed past them and aimed toward an open doorway. Beyond the doorway, footsteps tapped in rapid succession before Maddie's giggle faded into the distance. As Luca quickened his pace, his mind, perhaps seeking a break from the pain, took him back into the memories. His childhood fanned out on the head of a deck like playing the cards. He saw snippets of his life before an instant before seeing the next and the next. His memory cascade stopped at a camping trip he and his parents had taken just before the start of Luca's senior year. The camping trip came so early into his thoughts that it activated his senses. He could hear the crackling fire and the smell of wood smoke. He could see the clearing of the thick forest and tall fir trees. He could feel the moss between where he sat. He could taste the sticky sweetness of a marshmallow he roasted to perfection. It's about groupthink, son, Luca's dad said in Luca's inner memory movie. They'd been talking about why one of Luca's friends, Remy, was recently been arrested for stealing a car. Luca had been known him for a long time, and he was always been a straight-up dude. Luca had just asked Dad why Remy had gotten caught up in a group of guys who thought stealing cars with an impromptu drag race was a good idea. There's nothing about the dynamics of a group that can override the clear thinking, Luca's dad had said, getting into the subject. An individual's inner compass can go wildly askew when he or she is part of a group that gets fired up and go to a direction of any other time would feel completely wrong. People in those situations take actions they normally wouldn't take. They listen to others' ideas instead of their own. Groups tend to dampen the inner voice, the one that tells us what's true for us. What's true for us? The four words echoed around inside of Luca's head and the memory movie went dark. The pain came rushing back and Luca grasped. His breathing was again coming fast and hard. He could barely take a step without moaning. Luca made it through the door and he found himself in a huge storage room. The room was stuffed with stacked boxes. They were stage dressing. Or was the storage area real? Did it matter? Luca stopped to listen. Where was his friends in the room? For a few seconds, the only thing Luca could hear was the sound of his own ragged breathing. He forced himself to be still and hold his breath. And when he did, he heard nothing. He exhaled. His friends weren't here. There was no way they would be that quiet. Luca turned to retrace the steps, but his legs gave out. He collapsed to the floor. In the distance, Luca heard what sounded like distant buzz of an angry bee. He raised his head and strained to listen. The thud followed a buzz, and then Luca heard what sounded like a throw of laughter. His friends were so far away, there was no way he'd reach him. He just was too weak. Luca dropped his head to the floor. He closed his eyes. Asher let the door to the green-eared killer game fall shut behind him. He stared down the hall behind his friends, watching Maddie dance around Nolan. Their eyes were bright and their smile was wide. That was great, wasn't it? Can you guys believe how awesome Luca was? Not bad, Nolan agreed. Asher slapped Nolan's back. Not bad, he was stellar. All he had to do was run around in the dark, fake restaurant. Luca did all the rest. You're just mad that he was a star and you were a bit player. Kind of like on the field. Nolan turned and shook a fist at Asher. Shut up, Ash. You're not funny. Asher ignored Nolan's threat. He rolled his eyes and waited for an arrogant hulk to turn back around. Yeah, I kind of am, Asher said when Nolan slung his arm around Maddie. Maddie laughed and glanced at Asher over his shoulder. Yeah, you are. Asher grinned. Then he stopped and looked back at the door of the game. Should we go in there and get him? He's probably skulking in the storage room. He had no idea the game is over. He'll figure it out eventually, Nolan said. I'm hungry. Let's get changed and let's go get pizza. If Luke is not out before we're dressed, he's as smart as you'd think he is. He'll assume that where we went and find us there. The word pizza. At the word pizza, Asher just stopped caring about Luca's absence. Asher loved pizza, and he was starving. Luca's eyes flooded open. He looked out of soft gray shadows. His mind was mushy. He felt disembodied, like a consciousness was floating around the ether. Somewhere between awake and asleep. Where was he? He started to sit up. Luca returned, abruptly, appallingly. His body's stinging pulsations flared from his head to his toes. He fell back. He tried to open his mouth and cry out. His mouth wouldn't open. Everything came back to him. Luca remembered his situation. He was stuck inside a springlock suit, and it was killing him. How long had Luca been lying there? Where were his friends? Were they still playing the game? Were they hiding somewhere, someplace waiting for him to come and stalk him? Wherever they are, they probably weren't going to come back into the room again. Luca had to move. Groaning, Luca tried to push off the floor, but he couldn't do it. He felt like his muscles had turned into mincemeat. In that way, he was supposed to, they did. Luca figured like spike-like mechanisms of the suit had dug deep into his muscles, probably very nearly shredding them. Luca ground his teeth again and commanded himself to rise above the pain and go in the spite of it. He knew how to do that. He did it on the football field all the time. Luca called in the same direction now. He held his nerves endings to shut up. He pressed himself up onto the hands and knees. His current situation was his own second and 8 at the goal. If he gave up now, he'd lose. He wouldn't just lose another asinine game. He would return to how dire his situation was. If he didn't make his way back to the entrance of the set, he was going to lose his life. Luca managed to push up onto one knee. From there, grasping the explosions of misery all over his body, he staggered to his feet. The second he was upright, Luca fully possessed the severity of the situation. Inside his tennis shoes, his feet were drenched in blood. He even wore socks squished when he moved his feet. Luca tried to look around and see outside of his suit. Was saturated with blood? It was probably a blessing that the rabbit head didn't let him bend his neck far enough to see his legs. He raised an arm, but the lighting was too dim for him to differentiate between blood and the suit's already stained and darkened green, dirty green fur. Luca didn't need to see outside of the suit to know he'd lost way too much blood. Who was he kidding? That wasn't news. He'd known he was starting to bleed out when the suit had locked down on him in the dining room. He had just been trying to avoid accepting the truth. And the minute Luca had been in an awful Springtrap suit, he'd known that putting it on was wrong. Nothing about the idea of wearing the suit and pretending a murderer felt okay to him. Luca didn't even want to pretend to be the bad guy. He was Luca, a good guy who liked to do the right thing. Today, he hadn't done the right thing, and he was paying for it. Giving himself no more than time to stop his process of suffering, Luca got moving. He lurched through the storage room and he gazed to the backstage area. Once again, Luca passed the rows of costumes. As he went by, a couple of them swayed in the hanging rod. Luca's steps faltered. As he brushed against the costumes, why had they moved? Luca frowned. Why did he have a sudden sensation that he wasn't alone back there? And why did he think whoever was in there with him was not one of his friends? Staying as still as wavering legs would let him, Luca listened hard. Unfortunately, Luca's rough breathing couldn't be quieted. All he could hear was his own labored inhales and exhales. But wait, there, for an instant, he had heard a hint of movement. Just a second or two, a sound of fabric rubbing against fabric. Before Luca could answer the question, the door slammed in the distance. The sound of a small galloping feet followed the bang. In the dining room out on the stage, little kid's voice chattered. Luca moved forward again. Patting the curtains on the back of the stage, Luca stepped up behind the frozen Freddy standing in the microphone. Looking past Bonnie's immobile guitar, Luca gazed out the dining area. Just inside the entrance of the dining room, 3 small children huddled together, their eyes open wide, their faces tense with a combination of anxiety and excitement. The kids gaped at what they lay before them. As quickly as he could, stifling with a whimper, Luca ducked behind the leaning stage curtain. There was no way he wanted little kids to see him. Not only was he wearing a horrendous suit, his inability to walk normally, speak, would all terrify the kids, maybe even scar them for life. The last thing they needed to see was twitching, bleeding version of already horrifying Springtrap. Luca figured he'd wait until the kids went somewhere to hide before he made his way to the game's exit and pounded on it until someone came and let him out, or until he died, whichever came first. The kids looked to be maybe 7 or 8. Luca thought 2 were girls, 1 was boy. All 3 children in costumes similar to the ones Maddie, Asher, and Nolan had donned in the game. Luca had barely lucid. He knew that. He was moving more in an autopilot and he was tracking conscious action. Some permanent part of his mind was trying to save him. He was pretty sure the adrenaline-driven fight-or-flight mechanism was the only thing that gave his legs the strength to hold him up and to propel him forward. But when Luca saw the kids, his reasoning mind managed to come back alive. They couldn't be here if this game was still going. The game must have ended for his group. That meant Maddie, Asher, and Nolan had left. Why had they left him here? He tried to tackle that question, but beyond the mind's current capacity. Besides, it didn't matter. What mattered was that Luca would find a way out of the game. This place is creepy, one of the little girls said. The little girl had a cute round face and long blonde hair. He was the one that fought while I were dressed. Duh, Valerie, the boy said. He wore a costume similar to no one's. It's supposed to be creepy. The other girl, who had black hair and reminded Luca of Maddie's, punched the boy. Don't be mean. In spite of his plight, if Luca had moved the mouth, he would have smiled. His girl was like a little clone of Maddie. So where should we go? Valerie asked. If we stand here, he'll find us. The boy pointed down the main hall. Let's go that way. As the kids scampered down the dining room, Luca started to step out of behind the curtain. He stopped when he heard a scurrying sound behind him. Luca turned. The pain of his quick rotation filled Luca's eyes with tears. He felt the saltiness sting of the gouges of his face. As he dripped down the cheeks, he couldn't have been to brush the tears away. All he could do was grit his teeth and ignore an additional layer of torment. A tap and a small thump came from the backstage. There was someone back there. Luca tried to get on the stage rear curtain as fast as he could. He was so unsteady, though. He zigzagged instead of going in a straight line. He looked several seconds to get to the rear of the stage. There, Luca hesitated. Why was it probably wasting time checking out the sounds? It was probably just another kid, one in Springtrap costume. Luca needed to stick with his original plan. He needed to get to the game's exit. Lucas had swiveled around the exit. When he'd take a step, something was holding him in place. Was it some type of mental confusion caused by the blood loss? Was it something else, something real? Maybe it was instinct, because something besides his own pain was putting Luca on edge. Well, whatever it was, he had to find it. Luca put a hand out and carefully pushed back the edge of the backstage curtain. He ducked his rabbit head around the thick fabric, and surveyed the space filled with boxes and costumes. Lucas saw what he unconsciously perceiving. The thing that had drawn him back here was Earl. Standing his back to Luca, Earl's unmistakable shorn head was about to conceal inside a cheap Halloween costume like Springtrap head. The rest of Earl was already covered up by an equally cheap-looking Halloween costume like rabbit onesie. Both the head of the body of Earl was a designer looked like the one Luca was wearing. Earl's suit, however, was obviously just a costume. It wasn't a real Springlock suit, the one killing Luca. But cheap suit or not, Earl was turning himself into a Springtrap. He was dressing up as a killer. Was it going to be an act, or was it for real? Earl pulled up the Springtrap costume, headed to Beast. He stared to turn around. Luca jerked his own head back as the curtain. What should he do now? If Luca had been dying, and he knew he was dying, the idea of getting out of the game was something he was telling himself that to lie down and give up. He would have rushed backstage and tackled the pervert in the rabbit suit. He would rush fast enough to get the guy before he ran. Luca had to try. Gathering his strength, Luca raked back the curtain. He charged. Luca came to a abrupt stop. Earl was gone. Luca rushed forward and nearly fell to his knees from exertion. He stopped and clutched the costume rack. He looked around. Where was the creep gone? There was no way Earl had gotten past Luca, so Earl must have gone into some storage room. Luca took a deep breath and went into the direction. Every step of struggle, every motion torture. Luca searched for Earl in the storage room. After checking behind a couple of stacks of boxes, Luca was sure Earl wasn't in the room. Luca was making so much noise he couldn't end his moans and labored breathing. That Earl could easily have slipped away, and he heard Luca coming. But where did Earl go? While Luca wavered to the doorway, trying to focus through the figure of what to do next, footsteps pattered across the stage. Amy, look! Those are cool! Luca recognized the voice. It was the little boy from the entrance of the dining room. The little kids were back. Shh, Adam, the little girl whispered. This is what Maddie's clone. So her name was Amy. Do you want him to find us? How do we even know he's in here? Valerie asked. We haven't seen him yet. He's in there, Amy said. Luca moved as quietly as he could past the costumes to get closer on the stage to hear the kids. Unfortunately, he was moving so clumsily he couldn't be quiet. He lost his balance and foot came down on the hard floor. He froze the sound of a thud. Valerie squealed. Did you hear that? Shush, Amy whispered. He's back there, Adam whispered. What are we going to do? Valerie asked. We're going to split up and all go in different directions, Amy said. I don't want to be by myself, Valerie protested loudly. Shush, Amy said loudly. Fine. You go with Adam. Go and hide in one of the rooms in the main hall. I'll head toward the kitchen. He can't get us all at once if we're not together. If he can't get all of us, we'll win. But, Valerie began. Just go, Amy commanded. Come on, Adam whispered. A few seconds passed. Then Valerie whispered, Don't get caught, Amy. Luca heard scampering footsteps. He heard Amy take a deep breath. Luca moved as fast as he could out onto the stage. They got here just as Amy pushed through the swinging doors into the kitchen. And as soon as the doors stopped swinging, Earl raised up in front of the stage. He'd been crouching near the far stage steps. Luca grasped at Earl's trotted toward the swinging doors. Now, how did Earl gotten from the storage area to the dining room without passing Luca? Blinking to try to clear the vision, Luca trotted down his steps. As soon as he was down them, he saw how Earl had made it to the dining room without even being seen. The vent cover near the base of the stage was hanging open. He used the ductwork. Luca turned toward Earl, but Earl was gone again. Luca started to rush toward the swinging doors. Had he blacked out for a second or lost time? Had Earl already gone to the kitchen? A metallic grass shot grabbed Luca's attention. He looked toward the sound. Earl was crawling into another vent opening near the swinging door. Luca guessed that Earl was going to use the ductwork to sneak out on Amy and grab her. Then he probably would drag the girl back into the ducts. No one would find them. Luca had to stop him. Queasy and nearly out of his mind with pain, Luca felt the room spin and he attempted to run toward the swinging door. He tried to keep his balance, but his legs buckled under him. He went down. Fortunately, Luca was more slumped to the floor than dropped. He made no sound. He sprawled next to the vent opening Earl had disappeared to. For a second, Luca lay still. It was his end. This was the end. He couldn't think of how he could move again. From beyond the swinging doors, Amy screamed. A patter of footsteps followed the scream. Heavier footsteps followed the patter. Something crashed on the floor. A door thudded. A sound of footsteps began to recede. Amy started to scream again, but the scream was immediately muffled. He has her, Luca thought. Luca was pretty sure Amy had run out of the kitchen and out into the hall. Earl had caught up with her so quickly. He'd probably dragged her in one of the maintenance closets. Luca pushed up his elbows. No way was he getting outside or hurt Amy. No way. Luca bawled in agony as he forced himself to get to his feet. The sound, though, was like every sound he made, was muffled and distorted. He was sure Earl wouldn't have heard him. Taking a deep breath, refusing to make another sound or even consider the new gush of blood rushing from his thigh, Luca lurched into the hallway. Something hit the door in the maintenance closet, just down to the swinging doors of the kitchen. Amy shrieked. Luca threw himself forward, willing himself to stay upright. His legs felt as rubbery as the fake knife he'd wielded earlier. His knees buckled twice. Both times he steeled himself and straightened them again. He could do this. He could get to Amy before Earl could hurt her. Amy's screams turned into yowls. Several bangs vibrated in the maintenance closet door. It was obvious Amy was slashing to break free of Earl's grasp. "Let me go," Amy screamed. Luca summoned his will and took another step, crawling in the door doing reserves as he left. Luca propelled himself forward as fast as he could. He reached the door, desperately ignoring the spikes boring into his knuckles and wrists as he moved. Luca grabbed the door handle and wrenched the door open. He thrust himself into the maintenance closet. The first thing Luca saw when he practically fell into this cramped space stuffed with brooms, mops, and buckets was Amy, writhing like an enraged squid. Amy turned her arms and legs in blurred determination. Her eyes squeezed shut in either terror or concentration, or both. Amy flailed and fought with everything she had. No matter what she did, though, Earl hung on to her, until he turned his rabbit head came up. Then Earl's pale eyes, veering through the holes of the rabbit costume head, focused on Luca, and they blinked in confusion. The confusion was enough to distract Earl, as he loosened the grip on Amy enough that she was able to lean forward and bite down on Earl's forearm. Amy must have had a powerful set of teeth, because her bite made it all the way through the fur of Earl's Springtrap suit. Earl squawked and dropped her. Amy fell on her butt a few feet from Earl. Amy cried out when she hit the floor, and she popped back on her feet immediately. Her eyes glazed as she couldn't process her surroundings. She darted out of the maintenance closet and pounded toward the dining room. That's it, Luca thought. Run, Amy. Earl bellowed in frustration and anger, and he started to take off after Amy. Luca, however, wasn't going to let Earl get out of the closet. Luca jerked himself forward, intending to tackle the man. Instead of tackling Earl, though, Luca fell into him. He had worked, too. Luca's off-balance dive took him and Earl to the floor. Although Earl tried to throw Luca off, Luca didn't give Earl the chance to gain purchase. Instead, Luca bent himself around Earl and wrapped him in Nelson hold. Earl scrabbled to get free, but even though Luca was dying, his waning strength and the suit's heavy metal was greater than Earl's skinny frame and could muster. Luca had Earl pinned, so he used his advantage. Luca wrapped his ruined rabbit paws around Earl's neck and squeezed as hard as he could. Earl tried to buck free with Luca's stranglehold, but Luca's hands were locked into place. As if his hands would merge in the metal of the suit, they hooked into Earl's neck and tightened inexorably until Earl's airway was permanently blocked. Earl's body thrashed against the floor and kicked out of the brooms, mops, and he hadn't seen in a lifetime. During that lifetime, Luca's memories pulled out of his mind one last review, showing the scenes of his past. Luca's hope of the future unfurled in inner vision. These hopes wouldn't be fulfilled. They was going to achieve anything if he were sure he'd do. Finally, Earl wasn't still. As soon as Earl stopped moving, Luca let himself give in to the inevitable. His body, everything except his hands, which seemed to be fused to Earl's neck, went limp. The last thought Luca had before thoughts beyond him was the inner compass was working again. His final act had not been someone else's idea. It had been his own. Yeah, okay. So, let me just say this right now. Luca is my favorite FNAF Pizzaplex character. He may be dead and he may never be coming back, but only have I ever read not in my life. I've read of another character doing the same. But this guy, in his final breath, instead of saving himself, kills a pedophile. If that is not manly, I don't know what is in this world. Seriously, to be like him, that is a way to go, I gotta say. Taking out the life of someone so disgusting and ruthless. Just because he could. Oi. Envy. He's an idol. What I also know is that today we read pages 121 to 147. You could tell because my voice is getting a lot more shallow. It's not doing good for the voice. But yeah, but next time we'll be reading pages 148 to 160 and a new part of the book titled, if this would like to, come on. Oh, it starts with a capital C, my bad. Yep. And then you do this, and then you do this. Nope, and then you do this. Oh, nope, that's not, nope. Then you do this, and then you go, whoop. Cleithrophobia? Is that what it says? Cleithrophobia. I don't know what that is. But we'll find out next time we read. But that's okay, because it's time for... Reading Corner of the Day, doing it up Stonsey's way, Pop. Today we are reading about the Anatolian Shepard. Look at him, he's so fluffy. And the other one's so skinny. This dog can't catch a break. But before I have a strong opinion, or make fun, or really have any opinion on something that I take such an interest in, such as dogs, I should learn of its history. Not only does it build my credibility and make me look smarter in front of my mom, my dad, my sister, my brother, or my light that's really bright, by the way, but it also makes me more smart as a person. Though intelligence doesn't lie in knowing things, and intelligence lies in knowing things, but also telling them to others. As such, teaching them. That's why the smartest people you ever meet are teachers or scientists or doctors. Though, I will admit, there are some doctors and some teachers and some everything else in the world that ain't so smart. And I 100% understand that. Well, now, to fully understand it all, as I said that... Oh, hold on. Hold on, guys. Give me a second. Hey, Fox Shadow. How are you doing, man? I'm not vomiting. Oh, I'm in the reading corner of the day doing it up Stonsey's way. I'm reading about the Anatolian Shepard. How can I help you? I'm reading about the Anatolian Shepard. Yeah. Well, you want the other one? I'll get back to you once this reading video is done, okay? He's taking a nap. Yeah, but don't worry. I'll get to you when, I'll wake him up when, I'm done reading, alright? Shut up. Alright. The history of the Anatolian Shepard is that the Anatolian Shepard is an ancient guardian breed with a long working history. Its roots probably lie in the Tibetan Mastiff and Roman Malaysian war dogs that came to Turkey more than 4,000 years ago. They're proved invaluable as staunch defenders of livestock against formidable predators, including wolves and bears. They accompanied the nomadic shepherds that became widespread over the geographical region. Accounting for the Anatolians' great variation in size, coat type, and color, several traits have remained constant throughout all the breed. However, their loyalty, independence, and hardiness, the name of the shepherd is a misnomer because of the breed was never used as a herder. Its Turkish name, Koben Kopek, means shepherd's dog. The first of the breed did not come to America until the 1950s, where, although it proved itself as an effective livestock guard against the coyotes and other predators, it remained unknown to the dog fanciers. Only in the late 1970s and 1980s did the Anatolian Shepherd begin to be more widely appreciated. It's still valued for its utilitarian, rather than cosmetic attributes. Pet owners desiring a loyal and effective guardian began to acquire the breed. In 1996, the Anatolian Shepherd was accepted in the American Kennel Company, or AKC, miscellaneous class. Soon after, into the working group, Anatolian fanciers are adamant about retaining the dog's working instincts above all else. What a strange little dog. So it has very strange history and how it's always been thrown around and mixed up, and comes from the Mastiff. That's very cool. But I want one of these cool dogs. What's the temperament? How does it do with kids? Well, the Anatolian Shepherd is a serious dog, devoted with his family and his duty as family protector. At the same time, it's laid back and easygoing, never on the lookout for trouble. It's suspicious of strangers and territorial. It's good with children, but it may not be playful enough to satisfy the children's desires. As a serious watchdog, it tends to bark a lot if the suspicions are aroused. So this dog will protect your family and is suspicious of everything. So that's good. What's the upkeep? How do I keep my family's protector up and healthy? Well, the upkeep of the Anatolian Shepherd needs a chance to exercise every day, either with a long walk or brisk run. It can live outside in the temperate or cool climates, but needs to socialize with its family. Coat care is minimal, consisting only of weekly brushing to remove dead hair. So not bad. If you're a child, though, please cover your ears for a little bit. If you're an adult or teenager who owns an Anatolian Shepard, please grab a notebook, for we're going to be talking about the health concerns, major, minor, what they're occasionally seen with, the suggested test when you take them to the doctor, and lifespan. Their major concerns are CHD, minor concerns are entropin, and they're occasionally seen with nothing, which is good. Suggested tips are for the hips and eye. Their lifespan is 10 to 13 years, and a personal note from the Encyclopedia of Dog Breeds, 2nd edition, D. Caroline Cloley, PhD, says that they're sensitive to barbiturate anesthesia. Seems to be a common thing with a lot of the dogs. Now imagine you don't see that dog in front of me. What's its form? What's its function? What does it do? Well, the Anatolian's built tough and to do a tough job. It's a large, powerful, rugged dog, having both great agility and endurance. It has great bone and large head. Its gait is powerful, smooth, and fluid. Its coat consists of thick undercoat and an outer coat that ranges from short, about 1 inch, and to rough, about 4 inches, slightly longer around the neck and mane. The expression is intelligent, and general impression is one of the bold yet calm protector. Now for the final section is the tier list. 5 is the best, 4 is better, 3 is average, 2 is worse, 1 is the worst unless it comes to grooming. Oh my goodness. Energy levels out of 2, so not a lot of energy. Exercise requirements, playfulness, and affection level are out of 3, so pretty average. Friendliness towards dogs is out of 1. Friendliness towards other pets is out of 3. Friendliness towards strangers is out of 1. Ease of training is out of 3, so pretty average. Watchdog and protection abilities out of 5, so who doggy. Grooming requirements is out of 2, so worse than average. Cold tolerance is out of 4, and heat tolerance is out of 3. So better cold tolerance, not so, about average heat tolerance. Weight of a male should be 110 to 150 pounds for healthy, and a female should be 80 to 120 pounds. The average height of a male Anatolian Shepherd is 29 inches up, and for a female is from 27 inches and up, because if it was feet, we'd be living with giants. This dog was seen in a movie I watched recently. It wasn't Milo and Otis, but it was pretty close. And that is the breed we're going to be talking about in the next episode. So, I hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. I have a fox I got to call. Sorry that he interrupted today's partial episode, but you know, that's what friends do. And yeah, super fantastic, wonderful day, and I'll see you guys next time.